One of the things I wanted to talk about briefly that I haven't seen covered before is how to set up your folders. If you go into the menu finder, click into that, you'll see your SD1 and SD2. Click into one of those. This is kind of like your desktop. You've got a trash can, you've got a false take folder, which I don't use too much, but if you've got a garbage take, you can put them in there. You've also got the ability to set up other folders, and that's kind of what you want to do. You want to set up a folder for each project or even each scene if you want to get into that. So if you just start recording without creating a folder first, it's just going to simply put those takes, those files, on your desktop. You'll want to create a new folder and make sure that your recordings are going into that folder. Otherwise, you're just going to have this big long list of files right on your desktop. And there's a way that you can select those files and move them into the folder, but it's much easier just to create a new folder by going down to the new folder there and clicking into it. You could give it a name right there, like that. And I just created a new folder called Test with a check mark on it. So let's go back out to our recording screen, and we'll just make a little dummy recording here, all right? There's no microphones plugged into it, but I'm just going to make a little test recording there. Now let's go back into our menu and see where that put it. Finder, and that's recording it onto both cards, and I'll show you a little bit more about that in a second. So if you look in the test folder, there they are. Test 1. You can create a new folder from there too if you want, but every time I record another take, it's going to increment those right into that little folder there. You see? So you want to make sure you're assigning the correct takes into the correct folders. Otherwise, it'll just put it on your desktop. Test. There you see now I've got test 1, test 2, and so forth. So you can have as many different folders as you want. I recommend at least setting one up for each project. So if you're recording, say, a film shoot during the day, and then you went out to record a live concert that evening, make sure you you put the check mark next to the folder that you want to record into, and it's that easy. This is something that was a little bit confusing to me, and it took me a while to figure it out. But let's say that you wanted to go back to your other folder. So I've been recording into the test folder, as you see there. Well, let's say I'm done, and there's a little check mark next to it. You see that? Let's say I was done with that project and I wanted to go back to my other folder. Or in this case, let's actually create a new folder, and we'll call this test 2. You see I'm getting around there pressing the button in and out to go up and down. There we go, enter. There's my new folder, and it's automatically selected that with the check mark, as you can see. Okay, so let's say I wanted to, if I hit record, it's going to record into that folder now. But let's say I wanted to go back and record into the other folder, or any other folder. You can see that what I want to do is select that. But if I go to it and press it, it just opens up that folder. That's not what I want to do. I'm trying to select it. And the way to do that is by pressing and holding the scroll wheel. Hold it for a second. It'll ask you now, it'll open this option screen to select. You can rename it, delete it if you wanted to, or create a sound report. That's what I mentioned earlier from that folder. So you can create a sound report of that folder. What I'm trying to do now is just simply select the folder though. So you click it again. And now when I go to menu, into the finder, into the card, you'll see that I've selected test, the first test folder again. Or if I wanted to go to another folder, I click up, say to the bridge folder, click and hold. It'll open up the options, hit it again, and you'll select that folder. So that's how you select folders to record. I hope that helps you out a little bit. It's a little tricky to find that at first. Press and hold, and then hit select. As I said earlier, one of the nicest things about this unit is the ability to record a safety recording to that second SD card. That comes in really handy. If something happens to the first SD card, you've got a backup copy. Or if you wanted to hand off one copy to the producer, or whoever's writing your paycheck, you can hand over an SD card to that guy and still keep a card for yourself to take it back. And probably the first thing you're going to do is back that up. Let me show you how you can set that up. It's something you'll definitely want to do when you first purchase the unit. You're going to go into Menu. You would think it would be on SD card down at the bottom, but it's not. It's actually under Record. So go down to Record, click into that, and here you've got the first, at the very top, you've got Record to SD1 and Record to SD2. That's where you want to set that up. I'm not going to go too into depth with that, but what I like to do is set them both up to the exact same thing. And then if you click into either one of those, it's going to allow you several options. What I like to do here is just do this one. It's going to record tracks 1 through 8 as well as a left-right mix. And that's kind of a professional setup. You're going to have your 8 mono tracks and then a left-right mix, which it creates at the same time you're recording. That's where the mixing comes in. If you didn't want to do that, you could just go back to one of the others, track 1 through 8 poly wave, or track 1 through 8 mono stereo wave. So you can also just create a left-right mix if you don't want to have multi-tracks. I don't know why you'd want to do that. If you're mixing on the fly and just wanted to hand over a stereo mix of the concert without the individual tracks, you could do that. But I'd recommend just going to track 1 through 8 plus left-right poly wave. And when you do that, and you come back out of there, you want to make sure that it's the same on both of them. You could have one be different than the other. You could say on the second backup, you wanted to have just the mono tracks. You didn't want to have the left-right mix. That's something you could do. You just go back to tracks 1 through 8 poly wave. Okay, then you wouldn't have that left-right mix. But, you know, you've got plenty of memory. Why not just record it everything you can? Left-right mix is the way to go on both of those. Tracks 1 through 8 left-right mix. And you come back out of there, just confirm that it's tracks 1 through 8 left-right poly. You can change your sample rates there, your wave depth, make sure that's at 32. You can record MP3s too if you want. I've never used that. There's your pre-record on. All that stuff's still in that recording menu. So that's how you set up your backup recordings right there. I'd highly recommend you do that first thing. As I mentioned, there's a way you can set this up so you don't have to take those chips out at the end of each day and put them in your computer. That's the way I used to do it. But I purchased that little micro USB cable. This is where that comes in handy. At the end of the day, I would just unzip the side, pull that cable out, which I showed you earlier, plug that USB cable into your computer or your laptop, and then it's not going to see the unit automatically. It's not going to see that you're basically looking for a hard drive from your computer. It won't recognize that as a hard drive or a reader. You've got to set it up to do that. It's really simple to do. It's easier than popping those chips out every time. You just go into Menu, and from the top, go all the way down to the bottom to the USB. And click that, and the top menu is going to say SD card reader right there. Click that, and it'll turn it into an SD card reader. It'll pop up on your computer, or you might have to replug it into your computer, and you'll see the unit right on your desktop. Then you can open up and drag those files right off instead of pulling them off the chips, off the SD cards. It's a real handy way, instead of trying to open up the side and get down in that little cavernous little nook and get those SD cards out of there. Plus, you're not going to damage the SD cards by constantly taking them in and out, or maybe the cat would come and grab one or something like that. This way, you can use it as an SD card reader. And it's a one-click thing. So when you hit SD card, it's going to set that up. As soon as you click out of there, it's going to return to normal operation. So it's not going to stay an SD card reader. So if you unplugged it and plugged it back into another computer or something like that, you'll have to repeat those steps and go into USB SD card reader again. So it's a one-click kind of thing. As soon as you exit, it's going to drop it back into the field recorder mode. When you're using this as a field recorder and you're operating a boom, you're going to set up the headphone matrix to your liking. Here's how I do it. And it's nice because you can have several different headphone setups. Just press the menu and go from the top down into output. At the very top of the list, you'll see headphone. Click into that. Headphone routing. Click into that. And you'll see this, basically a patch bay, pop up on your screen. This is where you're going to set your headphone routing. You use the scroll wheel to go side by side, and then press to go up or down, and then side by side, just like your notes. I recommend on your first setting, which setting 1, you have 10 different settings. and you don't need to use all of those. But setting 1, I've set it up like this. You go over to, this is your left and right mix right there. I've got it set up obviously so that left goes to my left side, and you click down and go to right, and that'll go to your right ear, the right side of your headphones, so that you're hearing obviously a stereo mix in there. You're hearing left in the left speaker, right in the right side. The little indicators there, you can turn them pre or post fader. You can't really do that with the left-right mix. That's always going to be a post fader situation. I'll show you how to do a pre fader as well. Well, that's what I recommend for your setting 1. So the left-right mix in there is coming out your left-right in stereo. On my second setting, and I use this a little bit more frequently when I'm operating a boom, is what I want to do is listen to my boom pole, the boom pole that I have in my hands. I want to hear that on my left-hand side. So then what I can do is put on the headphones, and then if I just want to hear my boom, I can kind of push one ear behind my head, and that way I'm just hearing the boom in my left ear. And then on my, otherwise it's going to be coming through in both ears. I don't really want that. In my right side, I want to hear what lavs, all my lavs. Say in this case, I've got 3 lavs going in addition to that boom. So I can hear the lavs in the other ear and just push the boom off. So that's a really good way to kind of quickly control what you're listening to without having to touch the unit itself. Pretty standard. And the way to set that up, and this is again setting number 2, I do not have anything going to my left-right mix. What I've got is down here in my left ear, I'm going to select that. And by clicking it, you're going to go red, off, blue, and then back to red. So clicking that repeatedly like that will scroll it. I like it post fader. So if I'm making adjustments on the faders, say one mic is a little louder than the other, one person's too loud, I can pull the other mic down a little bit. Just the levels, I mean just the fader, not the actual recording. So that's going to be a post fader. So you want to make that red. So the boom is only in my, if you're looking right there, the boom is only in my left ear. Lav number 2 is going to be in my right ear. I'm on the right side down here. And 3 and 4 also. So those are going to be 2, 3, and 4 lavs are going to be in my right ear. And the boom pole is going to be in my left ear. And those are all post fader. You could set them pre fader if you wanted. That way any adjustments you make on the fader level are not going to be adjusted in there, but I'm not sure why you'd want to do that. But so I'd recommend having them all post fader, boom on the left ear, and your lavs on the right. And then you could have as many, you can have up to 8 more settings there if you wanted. And they all default to just a left-right mix. But setting 1 is left-right mix. Setting 2 I always use for my boom op. And just so you know, there's a couple other things. If you keep on clicking and go down, you can make all tracks pre or post by clicking that. You can also go over and make it a mono mix if you wanted to do that. If you just wanted to have one ear on all day and the other ear off. Or you can also go down to all clear. Click that, it'll clear the slate and you can start from scratch. At the end of the day, you might want to go back to setting 1. So if somebody else is using the unit, they turn it on and they can't hear their mix, it's because they're listening to the boom pole and 3 lavs, which are maybe not even on. So put it back on your left-right stereo mix to avoid confusion. So that's how you set up your headphone matrix. You can also do the same with your outputs. You can go down to main out routing, click into that, and you can do the same thing with your XLR outputs to your main PA system. You can do that exactly the same here as you do with your headphones for your PA system or whatever we have it connected to. So it's completely flexible. There's the sub out routing as well. Same situation. One of the other things that was a little bit confusing to me is when I first opened up my video editor, I used DaVinci Resolve from Blackmagic. When I first took the sound files off of my Zoom device and transferred them to my laptop over the USB cable, they looked a little different than files I'd looked at before. I had been recording all day into the same folder. It was the theater production, and I had several different stop and starts. I had several different files. What was confusing to me, because it was showing me like 9 different files, but I only started and stopped the recorder right after the first act. I let the whole first act go without any stopping, and then I hit stop for the intermission. And then when the second act started, I started recording the second act. So I thought I would have 2 sound files of, long, hour-long files. That's what I was expecting. Well, there were a couple things that were a little bit confusing to me, and I wanted to clear that up here. One was that the unit basically breaks down those longer recordings into smaller sections. I think it buffers them and saves them about every 18 minutes, as far as I could tell. So instead of having one long recording, it broke it down into 18-minute chunks. And that was a little confusing to me. I was like, what's going on? But as soon as you put them together in the editor, they're seamless. There's no stop in between them or anything like that. And this time code is consistent, so you don't have to worry about that. But don't let that confuse you. The other thing was that when I tried to play them on my desktop, I just wanted to audition to see if they were okay. You double click on them on the laptop, it won't play them. It's not going to play that file. I thought it was because it was a 32-bit file. Maybe it won't play a 32-bit file automatically. But I think what it really was that each of those files is a multi-track file. And it looks like it's one mono file, but it's actually all the different takes. So that was confusing to me. I thought I had lost the takes or something. I was kind of panicking until I opened up DaVinci, or whatever editor you're using. I selected all those files and I dragged them into my media folder, and then dragged them all onto the timeline. And as soon as I dragged them all together onto the timeline, it opened up the multi-tracks. Then I can see in each of those folders, there were 8 tracks, my overhead booms, my lavs, everything. So don't panic when you see like it looks like one little mono or maybe a stereo file. It's actually the multi-track file. So you won't be able to play them from your desktop. You'll have to drag them into your editor. And I'd recommend doing them all at once. You select all, drag them all into the media folder, and then select all in the media folder and drag them all onto your timeline, all that audio. And then you'll see all 8 takes or however many takes you've recorded, and it'll put all of the segments together. And you'll be able to see where each of them stop and starts, but it's linear when you play it back. I think that's a safety feature to ensure that it's buffering every 18 minutes or so. Maybe so the unit doesn't get too full or overheat, I'm not sure, but those are 2 little things that I wanted to point out to you. Hope that clears that up. If you're confused about that, just drop me a line or send me a comment and I'll try to talk you through it. Yeah, I actually had kind of a bad dream about that. I woke up the next day thinking, did I lose all those files from that whole 2-hour show? I was going to be in big trouble if I did that. But first thing I did is, even before I got my morning coffee, is went right to my laptop and said, let's see what's going on here. And that's when I realized that, yeah, everything's fine. The unit didn't fail, and I can count on it. That's the main thing about the Zoom recorder and professional audio devices, is they're designed to not crap out. They're not going to leave you in a lurch. I think that's why the unit is so popular. For the money, you're getting some really top-end features for a good price. We've been recording onto Sound Card 1. You don't have to indicate that you'd like it to record onto Sound Card 2. It automatically does that. If you go into Sound Card 2, you can see all of the takes have recorded in there. So you don't have to go in there and individually set that up. If you set that in your record settings, you're good to go. If you wanted to turn off that sound, that second sound card, you would just go to record to SD2 and you would select none. Don't think you want to do that though. Let me just show you real quick how you can go down to reformat the unit. What I usually do is at the end of the day, I'll come home. I've got my recordings for the day or the evening. First thing I'll do is transfer those files onto my laptop, and then I'll back them up to another hard drive. So I've got 2 backups right away in case anything happens to the originals. But I have gotten in the habit of never erasing or formatting the drive in the unit until the next day, when I'm sure that I've got everything backed up and I'm ready to go on to the next gig. Only then will I go in here and format this. At this point, all the recordings that I've got in here, like for the bridge recording, those have been backed up probably 3 times by now. Plus I gave them off to the editor, so he's got a copy. Once I really know that everything is backed up in multiple ways, I'll go in there and format the hard drive. As you would guess, you go down to SD card, And then information, performance test. At the bottom, you've got format. And it allows you to reformat one or both, but not at the same time. So SD1, I'm going to format that. Are you sure you want to format that? It's about to purge all that information. And I just formatted that card. That card is empty. Let's do that on 2 now as well. It's pretty quick. Just be real sure that you've got all the information backed up that you want, because it's gone now. There's no way to retrieve that. And now if I go back to my Finder, the top SD card 1 is empty. It's taken off all the folders and everything, and it's ready to go. So I can create a new folder if I wanted to. And also on SD2, that's empty as well, you see. Now let me show you real quick, like I was showing you before. If I'm on my main screen and I start recording, it's to say I did 1, stop that, 2, even 3 takes. So there's 3 little recordings I just did. If I go to my menu now, go into the Finder, SD1, you can see it put those takes right on the desktop. It didn't put them on any folder or anything like that, okay? Because I haven't selected a folder to put them in. Let's go down here and create a new folder. There's my test folder. So now when I start recording, stop, and look in that menu, it's recording into that folder now. That's how you do that. So you just make sure that you've selected the folder that you want to record into before you start recording. As you can see, it's recording onto both chips. You can rename files there if you wanted. You could add a new note to it. You can change the scene, the take. You can circle it if you wanted to, circle that take. That's going to do it on both chips. You can name the folder, the tape name, project name, track name, all from right there. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff in that metadata section there. Without going too far into it, you can also attach notes to that take. Scene name mode. This will attach the name of that folder to each of those scenes, where you can have none, the date, the username, or the current folder. So in this case, I was working on a theater production. Let's just call it The Bridge. And when you go into the Bridge folder, it also attaches Bridge to each of those takes. And you can clearly see that all of my takes are in that Bridge folder. I would recommend doing a sound check and just record a test audio and just make sure that those takes are all incrementally going into the correct folder. And you can have as many folders as you want. If you're doing different scenes, there's a quick shortcut way to create a new scene. Every time you change scenes, you could say, like, this is just the name of the production, Bridge, but you could have Bridge Scene 1, Bridge Scene 2, or you could say living room, dining room, backyard, whatever you wanted to do, so that you've got all the different takes are going into separate folders for each scene. It's a nice way if you've got the time to do that. But typically what I'll do is just set up the name of the production and record into that folder all day long. And then when the editor gets the files, he's just going to see a big long list of files. So yeah, set that up carefully and make sure you're recording to the next folder. Under History, it'll also show you the names of any other folders you set up previously, so you don't have to type it in every time. I don't usually use that, but it's there if you need it. Just go into History, but Edit is where you want to set that up usually. Scene increment mode, leave that on numeric. Track name we covered. Take reset mode, leave that on folder change. Take name format, leave that on scene take number. You could switch it to just scene if you want, but I always leave take there as well. Just keep things simple. And that's everything under metadata. And that's kind of an important little window that a lot of people overlook but that's where you set up everything. Input is also a place where you can set up all your sources, your phantom power. It's a third way to set up everything. That's the list of everything you can do there. There's a feature at the bottom called Auto Mix that you can use if you're doing a podcast or you have multiple people talking into different microphones. Turn on your Auto Mix and it'll automatically put the other mics down when nobody's talking on. If there's one person talking, it'll focus on that and keep the others low. And that's a good way to quickly do a podcast or an interview to keep the noise from all the microphones building up too much, if you're interested in something like that. Input source, that's the place where you adjust all your input settings. Output, obviously, record, we covered that. Play, leave that on play all. Timecode. If you click into timecode, this is where you can adjust your timecode two different ways. You can have it external or internal. If you wanted to just have timecode running internally, you could. I've got some external timecode boxes that I use, so I'm going to set it on external, and you can leave external audio clock sync off and external continuous on. But the top window there is where you're going to adjust it from. You need to switch that over to external timecode if you're using timecode boxes. What the Slate mic is, there's a little toggle switch right there. It's hard to press it. It has kind of a little resistance, so it's not something that's easily pressed. When you press that to the left and hold it, this unit has a little teeny microphone built into it. I'm actually not sure where it is. I think, yeah, there it is, right there on the bottom right. Little teeny microphone, and that's a Slate microphone, so that if you press that to the left and hold it, it'll record what you're saying right here into that little microphone onto all tracks. It's something that you might want to do if you're calling slates, like if you're calling out to the clapboard or something like that. If you're operating the clapboard and you want to call that out, you could say that information right there at the beginning of each take on all tracks. So that might be something you want to do. If you press it to the right and hold, it will record a tone. You could do that at the beginning of the day to set a tone going to all tracks, which makes calibration easier in post. They can set their levels there based on that tone. But I don't use that tone or that slate, because what I'm worried will happen is that if I am recording a scene with lavs and boom mics, it's not easy to do, but if I press that button, it's going to mess up the audio on those recorded channels. So there's a way that you can go in here and lock this so that it doesn't do anything, even if you do press it. It's not something that's likely to happen, but I'm just worried that if for some reason, maybe I'm in the dark and I'm trying to, and I press that for some reason, right in the middle of the take, it's going to mess that take up. Not something I want to do. So what you could do is go into Slate mic, and you can go down and turn it off at the bottom there, on or off. I recommend just turning that off unless you need to use that Slate mic for some reason, if that's something you want to do. It's very nice because you can do that without an external microphone. You can just call out Slate takes right there. You can also adjust the routing of it. If you want it to just go to one channel, you can do that. If you want it to go to all channels, you can do that. You could even use it as a PA system. If the outputs from this are running to a PA system, you could have it just go to your left, right, or your main mix output. If you wanted to just use that and say, okay, stand by everybody. You know, an unusual way you could use that, but you can totally set up your routing right there as well. But like I said, I just go ahead and turn it off. That says off lock, and that way it's going to defeat that little toggle switch altogether. If you did want to use if you at the beginning of the day you did want to turn on and set a tone level, you could do that. It defaults to 20 decibels. You can go in there and adjust that to whatever you want. 20 is the default. So that's the little Slate mic there. Oh, I didn't even notice you can also adjust the tone, the Slate tone, the level, the frequency, the routing, or just turn it on or off, lock it. I turn it off because it's not something I'm really typically doing. So I think that covers all of the internal features of the F8n Pro. I think I've gone over all the stuff that I want to. If you'd like to take a deep dive, go to the user manual or look at some of those other videos that I mentioned earlier today online, and you'll learn a lot. There's a lot of depth to it. Actually, I'm going to turn this off. I think we're done with that today. And it's real nice because Zoom always says goodbye. Good to see you as always. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time on the Recording Studio Forum. Aloha.